Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Brian Turner here with another episode of the No Stress Midwest podcast. We're in episode 10 out of 11, which is so crazy that we're at the final last two. But don't you worry, this next guest is going to be everything and then some. So I am lucky, and we are all lucky enough to be joined by Caitlyn Schrepfer. Caitlyn also goes by Caitlyn Freestyle as her Instagram handle. Caitlyn, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brian. How are you?
I am doing good. I made the mistake of asking Caitlyn how the weather was where she is, and she turned her screen around, and I instantly regretted it. Caitlyn is in this like soccer house with a bunch of freestylers. You're in what part of California?
I'm in SoCal, Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. So you guys can make sure you check out her Instagram and kind of look at her videos and stories. You can see some of the stuff they're up to. We're going to get into that in a bit. But Caitlyn, if you guys do not know, is the #1 freestyler in the United States and the #2 freestyler in the world. So I'll be honest, I Googled you like I do all the people, trying to just get some information about you. And I was reading this article, and the person was explaining what freestyling was and then went even in depth as to what juggling was. And just listening to like someone explain juggling, like they do a mixture of keep ups with their different body parts. And the ball never hits the ground, and they do all sorts of tricks and flicks, and I was like, what the heck? Sounds like a circus act. But Caitlyn is really good with the ball at her feet. So Caitlyn, whoa, dropped my pen. Oh well. So Caitlyn, what's it like? I mean, just being a freestyler, kind of how did you get into freestyling? I know that's not probably a profession that you like turned on the TV and just was like, that's it. So what was soccer like for you? How did you get involved?
So, growing up, soccer was always kind of a part of my life. I was the youngest sibling in my household. My dad was a coach, so I was kind of always around it. I started playing with the ball earlier than a lot of people probably even started thinking about it. I started about 4 years old. And from 4 years old up until I was 19 or 20 in college, I was playing soccer the whole time. And for the majority of that time, I thought that was what I wanted to do that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, be a professional soccer player, as I think a lot of people go towards. But freestyle was something I kind of just fell into almost on accident. I injured myself in high school. I'm very accident prone. Injured myself.
You mentioned, actually, it's funny because you mentioned that before we hopped on the call, and now it makes sense. So, okay, you weren't lying about that. All right.
Oh, yeah. I injured myself my first year of high school, which is a real bummer considering I had won the starting spot as a freshman. I was a goalkeeper. And the injury, I pulled a hip flexor and it put me out for about 4 months because I didn't rest it properly. And in that 4 months, I obviously couldn't stay away from the ball for that long. So I taught myself how to juggle because I was complete trash before that.
Yeah.
So I taught myself how to juggle. And then I went to a soccer expo that they used to host out here every year in LA. And I saw freestyle for the first time. And the minute I saw it, it was a group of, I think about 6 different people, girl and 5 of the guys. I was just instantly captivated. It was just these mind-boggling tricks and movements that didn't even seem like they should be possible without the ball. And then you put in a ball and it's just like insane.
Yeah.
And that was the moment I knew I need to learn how to do that. And it wasn't a skill that I wanted to do professionally. I just wanted to, pick it up, show it off a little bit,
right.
Things like that. And it snowballed from there, and it turned into this massive thing that I never even imagined before.
So what age were you when you first saw that that expose and you saw the freestylers, and then kind of you said it snowballed, like in a year, kind of where were you with skills in 2 years and 3 years and up to now? How did you get there?
So I was 16 when I saw the soccer expose. I
So
ended up.
still in high school. So
Mhm.
still in high school. So freshman year, you're injured. So that year's out. 16 is junior year? Soft
Yeah, I was going into junior year.
Going into junior year, you saw the expose. Okay. So what happened sophomore year? Did you play?
I did play. That was kind of when I was teaching myself how to juggle a little bit more, but
Okay.
juggling was all I really did and didn't have any
Yeah.
of the things like
O-
that.
Okay. So you see the expose junior year. You were hooked. You saw like, okay, there's some things that I never thought were possible. Then what happened? I know you have a gymnastics background, so kind of how did, in 1 year, where did you get, right? You sucked at juggling. Now you can juggle. What's that how was that progression?
So that progression went from, I think my juggling record was about 20
Okay.
beforehand. And then fast forward 4 months later, and I stopped counting my juggling record about 5,000. Took about 2 hours. Yeah.
Jeez,
Um,
okay.
and I would just teach myself tricks just off the internet. I bought a DVD that I would just play on repeat and then go out and juggle for 2 hours, 3 hours at a time at any time of the day, which stressed my parents out.
For sure.
And I just was doing it for fun. And then all of a sudden, I was at National Cup with my club team. And my coach wanted to show off a little bit. So he had me do some tricks, recorded it, put it on the internet. And one of the guys from the original team that I saw reached out and said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Do you want to come try out for the team?" And I just kind of lost my mind at that because,
Yeah.
to me, they were like the celebrity. You're never going to touch that.
Yep.
And I have a very distinct memory of when I got that message. I was at the gym with two of my teammates, and I literally think I jumped on a bench and started screaming in the locker room.
That's awesome. So it all came full circle. So that's almost like and with the past guests, we do like a draft day story. So when a lot of them get drafted, I realize that like they're driving in their cars or they're like at the gym or something like that. So your draft day story, you're at the gym, you get this message and it's from the people who you first were inspired by saying, "Come try out." So you jump on the bench, you're excited. What was the next step after that?
So next up after that, I drove out to Torrance. There was a facility that they would host clinics at all the time. And I had no idea what to expect going into this. Like, we've all been through soccer tryouts, but a freestyle tryout is not really a thing.
Yeah.
So I drove in there not really knowing what to expect. I show up and they're teaching a clinic of somewhere between 20 and 40 kids.
Okay.
And it was the guy who reached out to me, the manager of the team, and one other person. And they're like, "Hey, jump in here and do a show with us." And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Free tricks.
Right. Can I tap
was
my
not
shoes? Can I stretch real quick? Is there water? Goodness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like right into the fire. So I jumped in there. I did this show. I don't think it went really well because it's kind of not really that strong in my memory. So I might have just blocked it out. But at the end of the day, all things considered, the guys were like, "Hey, you did a great job. We'll teach you a few tricks. Do you want to join the team?" And that was really all that mattered to me.
Boom. Game over. I'm in.
Yeah. So I ended up staying with that team for about 2 years before we kind of all went our separate ways.
What was the name of that team?
So the original team was called Futboleros.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess because I'm with the followers and the listeners here, I'm learning just as much about freestyling as you all are on the go. So I'm going to be asking a lot more questions than probably were on the topics. So one of my early influences or examples of freestyle was the Yogo Bonito commercials with like young Zlatan and Ronaldo, like zit face Ronaldo, acne prone Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho and Rubinho and all these guys on the Brazilian national team, and they were just doing stuff that I'm sure, like you first saw it, I was just like, whoa. When I first saw Around the World, my mind was absolutely blown. I was like, how in God's name did he wrap his leg around the ball like that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started just seeing them do all this stuff, and it was just so effortless. And it was like they've been practicing, but it didn't look like they were practicing. And I was just like, I want to try that. And I made the mistake of practicing around the world in my house. And I broke a picture, sorry, Mom, and I blamed it on our cat. And we shunned her for a month. It was bad for her, but it was for the sake of football. So
And look where it got you.
yeah, so we're okay. Um, but okay, so you joined this freestyle team, and what is it like being on a freestyle team? Like, did you have to move out there? How do you practice? What are shows like? You know, kind of talk to us about the whole thing.
Okay, so because the team was based here in LA, we were kind of spread all over Southern California. So thankfully, I didn't have to move anywhere at the time. I was 17, still lived at home, still was playing soccer. So it was a little bit hard to adjust the schedule for things like that. But shows kind of came in on a regular basis, but you really couldn't expect it. So it was like, hey, you have a show tomorrow, this time, this place, and you just kind of roll with it. So you get really good at going with things on the fly like that, which
Yeah.
not my personality at all at that point. So that was a really interesting transition. And then as far as things went, I think the entire team was comprised of, at the most, about 8 individuals at any one point. We had people come and go,
For sure.
that normally happens. But shows typically had anywhere from like 3 to 5 people in it. And generally they would last about 3 to 5 minutes. Everyone does a few minutes split into a couple different rounds. And we all kind of play off of each other, which honestly the best way I could imagine starting, because now I've done individual shows, and the thought of trying to do an individual show that early on is just so stressful to me, because it's so much nicer to have someone else to play off of.
For sure. I got you. So is there, because I'm thinking about this and the fear, like I feel confident juggling, right? But the fear of doing the stuff you do, and like, I mean, I don't know how many takes, right? But the fact is you do it in a take at least. How how does like how do you kind of compartmentalize just the simple things, right? Like, is juggling just as simple as breathing, just keeping the ball up? Like, how does that work? Do you think about that, not having a bad touch, or is it all just you're an autopilot?
Luckily, I gave myself a really good base in juggling before trying to get into freestyle, which I think was a huge key. It just kind of turned into like meditation practice for me. So I could just like start juggling and then completely zone out and just go zen. So that helped a lot. So I never really have to think about just the regular juggles.
Okay.
But as far as the rest of it goes, I tend to get very nitpicky about like technique.
Hmm.
So I'm doing the tricks, I'm thinking about like technique, touch, power, like things like that. So I do tend to think about it quite a bit. But I think for me, because I've spent so much time doing it and practicing and failing, failing is not really a bad thing to me anymore. It's like the more you fail, the better you get. And I remember early on hearing about the 10,000 hour rule.
Mm-hmm.
It was always something I like to abide by, because it's like, those 10,000 hours aren't always going to be good hours. The majority of them probably aren't going to be.
Yeah.
Because we'll spend 3 hours trying to get a single trick and not ever manage to get close. And, if you start taking that failure really harshly, you're never going to move forward.
I love it. And just because I'm familiar with the 10,000 hour rule, I say it to my kids sometimes, but why don't you explain what the 10,000 hour rule is, and how do you abide by it?
So it's basically the idea that in order to be a master at any skill, no matter whether it's sports, no matter if it's arts or music, a master needs to put in at least 10,000 hours of work in, which sounds like a lot, but when you break it down over the years, it's really not that much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for me, abiding by that is just like every day getting out there, putting in the hours, good days, bad days, everything comes down to just work. And I think in a lot of ways you can learn a lot more from the failures than you can from the successes. It's like you try a trick, that touch goes wrong, so I need to fix that a little bit. You do a show, this trick didn't go over so well, so next time I'll do this. Whereas if you succeed, you succeed, and that's great, but you don't really.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. You have to learn from, what people call failures, but if you learn from it or take something positive from it, then it's not a failure, right? Then it's a learning experience, and you start to learn you don't have that many failures. You just have a lot of learning experiences. So little,
100%, yeah.
yep, little perspective like that. So all right, so you mentioned you were part of a football team, or a freestyle team. You're with them for about 2 years. So is it common to kind of bounce around teams? I'm kind of picturing like a breakdancing squad. Please don't judge me here. And then you guys like meet, wherever it is. Like you're saying, you get a call. Hey, the streets are talking. They're saying you need to, answer. Come out tomorrow night. So what's it like, when you switch to another team, or are you an individual now, kind of on your own? What's that process been like?
So now I'm an individual on my own. I do end up working with them quite a bit, like various different people here in California and then abroad as well. So it's no really like hard feelings or anything like that.
Right.
I do think freestyle teams are pretty common around the world, though. Most major freestyle countries tend to have at least one. And I think that's just the nature of like doing a show. It's a lot more entertaining to watch 5 people who are really crazy with tricks than just one.
Just one, yep, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So all right, so where has freestyling taken you? Now I know we spoke maybe a few months ago when I was first kind of interviewing you for the podcast, and you mentioned some crazy stories, but I want to get this on record. So like, where are some of the craziest places it's taken you? Who are some of the biggest names you've met, or like, megged or juggled around or just embarrassed? Kind of what doors has it opened for you?
Oh, I mean, it's opened up a whole nother lifestyle. Craziest places freestyle has taken me. I would have to say Tokyo, Japan, Jamaica, Prague, and England would be some of my top picks. Canada as well, although that's not as exciting for some people.
Yeah. Hey, if it's exciting for you, it's exciting. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that's there.
Yeah, and the stories I have from all of those trips are hilarious and would take far too much time for the podcast. But people I've met, I mean, that's quite a list. The ones that stand out to me would be my first major commercial was done with Lionel Messi, which everyone should know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I actually ended up doing another commercial with him later on, which was just the most star-studded production I've ever been part of. It was Messi, it was De Gea, it was Mo Salah, who I am ashamed to admit I didn't know who he was at the time.
Was this was this during his Chelsea days?
No, this was the 2018 Adidas World Cup commercial. So he was. Yeah, he was already like
Liverpool,
making splashes.
Yeah, and he's just, hey, it happens. It happens, okay.
Yeah, and then I had Jesse Lingard, David De Gea there as well, which as a goalkeeper, that was kind of one of my highlights.
Yeah. So you've not only done one commercial with Messi, you've done 2.
I have.
So wow. What's he like? Did you interact with him? Was he interactive, or were any of the athletes, De Gea, Lingard, how were they?
So I didn't get too much of a chance to interact with Messi because his part in both of them were very fast paced and we were kind of on different pages. I did get a chance to interact with the rest of them. Lingard, De Gea, Mo Salah, all super down to earth people. Mo Salah was the most chill person. In between takes when we were on set, we would just sit there and start juggling, and then they would just like start snapping away photos.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got to juggle with Lingard and Mo Salah. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And this was before you knew who he was, so you were only tagging Jesse Lingard. Hey, look, you guys, I'm juggling with Jesse Lingard and some other guy that just hopped in the commercial. I don't know where he came from, but they let him on.
Oh, yeah. My friends had a real crack at me when I got home, and they're like, do you know who you were juggling with? And I was like, nah.
I thought he was just an extra.
Yeah.
So that's I mean, pretty impressive. We talk about like, I mean, locations, and I feel like, at least for me, I think location would be a big thing. Maybe like indoors versus outdoors, super crowded versus like maybe not as crowded. Do any of those things play a part in the experience that you put on, or are you just kind of trained where, hey, you just tell me when and where, give me a ball?
I mean, it's kind of both. You tell me when and where, and I can do it whenever, wherever, and put on a show, and I'll be happy with it. But like, there are definitely circumstances that improve the experience 100%.
Yeah.
Like big crowds, but big crowds that seem like they feel like they're very close rather than really spread out.
Yeah, intimate, big
Mm-hmm.
intimate crowds. Yeah.
Yeah, generally like indoor with a bit of an echo where you can put on like some bumping music and really get the feel of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's the vibe.
I've done like packed out stadiums, which those are always great for the experience, but I actually really enjoy like slightly smaller crowds indoors because you can start to feel the audience excitement and you just feed
Yeah.
off it.
And you vibe. I love that. Um, so all right, and I've been watching your posts. Once I got you on as a guest. I've been watching, and Monica, the person who introduced us, she sent me some of your stuff before I even knew who you were. Um, but I see that you have this like signature move, which is like you're juggling and then you like catch it behind your head and do like a backhand spring or back bend. I don't quite know the term. Uh, how did you come up with that? And then kind of talk us through how are you influenced by new moves? Because I feel like that the freestyle industry is one where, yes, like there are certain moves that everyone can do, but what makes you the top is by doing things that no one's ever seen or thought of. So, what kind of goes into your creative process when doing that? Are you a student that's struggling a little bit with the hybrid and virtual learning and looking to get just a little more help academically? Or are you a parent that has a child who's struggling to keep that same level of discipline and rigor that they had in the classroom at home? If any of these apply to you, check out No Stress Midwest Education, an academic tutoring service where we offer both in-person and virtual tutoring. One of the things that separates us from others is that all of our tutors are board certified educators in Kansas and Missouri in a variety of specialty topics and familiar with the latest curriculum in school districts around the metro area. We are passionate about helping students achieve their goals in the classroom and also committed to helping students build the necessary skills and tools they will need in the future to succeed on their own. Our team follows the latest guidelines from the CDC. We require masks for all in-person tutoring to protect both the student and the tutor. Our tutors will either travel to your home or meet at a predetermined location to conduct all in-person tutoring sessions. All we need is a space for learning, and we're ready to go. At No Stress Midwest, we truly believe in developing the well-rounded student athlete. No Stress Midwest does not tell you what to think, but teaches you how to think. No Stress Midwest Education, an academic tutoring service. For more information, visit www.nostressmidwest.com/education.
So, as you said earlier on, I have a gymnastics background. I have a background in a lot of different sports, especially, but gymnastics has played a huge role in all of that. And so, my signature trick is called the cat flip, and it actually was not my idea. I had a friend of mine who was very into rhythmic gymnastics, which is where it came from. And he saw this video. We were out doing like a 9-hour day in Arizona in like 104-degree weather, and we were exhausted. And on one of our break periods, he turned to me, he was like, you know what? I saw this in a rhythmic gymnastics video. You have to try this. Because at the time I would do like flips and splits and things like that, but never anything crazy like that. So I gave it a try. And first try, I was actually trying to do something else with that. I was trying to drop the ball from my neck to my feet. And I kind of like fumbled the ball, dropped to my thigh, and then froze. And we looked at each other. I looked at him and he looked at me and we're like,
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah, like, oh shoot. That's it.
Sick.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. And honestly, the whole thing was just a mistake. But in all honesty, I think that's how a lot of the tricks get created. Like you're trying one thing and it turns into something else and you're like, that's cool. Let's roll with it.
Yeah, let's do it. Or let's add on to this. What if we did this on top of that, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. I think freestylers, one of the things we're really good at is looking at all sorts of different sports and motions and people and being like, how can we put a ball in there? And how can we make this cooler?
Yeah.
Because that's how I get a lot of my ideas. Like I look at gymnasts, I look looking at b-boys, even though I can't break dance to save my life.
Okay.
Looking at the way normal people move and seeing if I added some music and put a ball in there, how would that look?
Right. So let's get into, well, I know that you've got your world rankings, you've got your national rankings. How is that kind of decided, right? Is it like you just go to a bunch of events and it's a crowd rating, or is there like a circuit or series that you have to be a part of or get invited into? Kind of talk us through that.
So starting with the national rankings, we every year we have a so the okay, let me step back a little bit. We have a governing body, the WFFA, who kind of helps organize everything, decide rankings and things like that, and put on legitimate national championships. So every year we have a legitimate national championship that's certified by the WFFA for the United States. And the first few years we did it, there actually wasn't a female competition. I would just jump in and compete with the guys, which
Yeah.
I think was beneficial in a lot of ways. The last few years, though, we did start incorporating the female side of it.
Okay.
So that would happen every year. And then as far as the world championships go, that's where things get a little bit less clear because we have the World Open Championship, where if you ask the freestylers, that's the world championship. If you're a world champion at the Super Bowl, you are the world champion.
Yeah.
But then you also have the invitationals like Red Bull Street Style, which I just competed in, and then various other international competitions that are put on as well.
Okay. And so do they have their own world champions? Like Red Bull has a world champion and then each one of those has their own.
Mm-hmm.
So is it common then for someone to try to like sweep it all and compete in all of them and say, I want to be the outright world champion in it all? Or is that a common thing that most people do?
I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's common to succeed at that, but definitely everyone tries to aim for that. I mean, if you're a competitive freestyler, you got to take every single shot that you can to get that experience, especially here in the States. And it actually has been done. I'm not sure if it's more than once, but for sure, Andrew Henderson, he's from the UK, from England, and he in 1 year swept every single competition that you can win. 10-time UK champion, 5-time world champion. Like this guy is a beast.
Legit. And he's still going, like still performing now.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Henderson.
Yeah, 100%. You have to check him out.
I definitely will now. He comes highly recommended. So all right. So how has COVID this year affected, if it has, the world championships or the national championships? You said you just competed in one, so you know obviously there's some sort of competing going on, but has things been affected at all by that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say Super Bowl or freestyle is not exempt from that. Our national championships got put on hold, so that got canceled this year. The World Open Championship, Super Bowl, actually did take place in Prague as normal, but you know, with so many different countries being banned from traveling, things like that, it was a much smaller organization, although the level was just as high.
Right.
But I couldn't take part in it. I had to sit there at 3 a.m. watching the computer live stream and just, you know, being a little
right with a big bowl of ice cream, just kind of eating away at your.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was a dark week. But in the midst of all of this, Red Bull Street Style, which is the Red Bull Invitational World Championships, has actually been taking place, and they did it in a very interesting way this year. It started in May, and it took place over the course of the last 6 months, 5 different rounds. to start out from like free for all, everyone's allowed to jump in and join in. And then we slowly cut the numbers down to the top 16 males, top 8 females who competed live on the live stream for the World Championship.
That's awesome. How did you do?
I made it to the top 8, and then, unfortunately, I made too many mistakes. I had a tough opponent, one of the previous world champions, which actually really hyped me up. But unfortunately, I made too many mistakes to move on from that battle.
Okay. Well, and that happens. And I think that a lot of the things this year and what we kind of discussed earlier is not so much looking at it as failures, but finding those positive things from it to grow. So next year you'll be competing to try to get the #1 spot, I'm guessing, in the world. Is that what's on the radar?
You better believe it.
So kind of talk to me about what's going on with you right now. Okay. So you're in this house that looks very beautiful, by the way. For the people that are just listening, it's looks very stunning. It's a very stunning view. I've been watching you on Instagram. You're in this like house with a bunch of freestylers. What's the concept of that? How did it come about? Did you know them? Is it like a real world for freestylers? Kind of give us the details on it.
So our place is called the Baller House, and it's a concept that was brought up by a good friend of mine, Daniel. Daniel got hits, as a lot of people know him on Instagram. And I think it's like a concept that everyone kind of tossed around, but never really brought to life in the way that he did, and which was very spontaneous. And yeah, basically we're all out here for about the next month or so. It's 6 different creators, both freestylers, soccer players, soccer content creators. And I'm at least familiar with them, or like passingly familiar with all of them, because, as big of a world as it is, the soccer freestyle world is still a very small world.
For sure. So you're just in there making some dope content and having a good time while you're doing it.
Oh yeah, living the life.
Yeah, I see that. So what's a typical day like for you? You wake up, is there breakfast cooked for you, or is it like a frat house? Kind of, let's hear all the details.
Every woman, every man on their own, basically, is how it works right here. I'm trying to turn myself into a morning person because I am so not a morning person. But every day, wake up about 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock. I make my own breakfast. We all kind of fend for ourselves. I chef it up in there. And then I'll go outside and have a freestyle session about 9 a.m. And then people will kind of trickle in and join us. And we'll get about 3 or 4 people at a time, all doing a morning training session for the next like 3 hours or so.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take a chill break for about an hour. And then that was when we really go in hard and we start creating content. The day by day, the schedule kind of changes a little bit, but we'll spend anywhere from like the next 3 hours to 6 hours filming and things like that. And then last night we realized that we actually have the most ridiculous lighting setup. So those hours might get extended.
Uh-oh. So what can we expect to see from the outcome of this? Is it going to be like a documented series? Do we need to follow all of you on Instagram to kind of piece together what's going on? Is there going to be one video with everything? Kind of what's going on with the ending product?
I think the best way to get the full experience would be to follow each of us individually, because as much as we're going to be creating content as a house, all of us are kind of breaking off into smaller groups to create even more content as well. So there's a lot of different levels at work here.
Right. Okay.
As it stands right now, I don't think we'll be creating one big video about the whole experience, but things change.
Yeah.
Not possible.
Okay. So how did you get invited to this house? What did someone just send you an Instagram? Was it someone send the DMs and was like, yo, I got this super dope pad in LA. You can play. And obviously you knew the person, Daniel, but was it just like one night he just was like, hey, I've got an Airbnb, let's do it. How did it come about?
I mean, that's basically it. Daniel and I are very similar in that respect. Like, we can be very spontaneous about things that people we'll plan out for months, but we'll just think of it and go for it in like the same 24 hours. So I think he put a little bit more work into like thinking of who's going to be in this house, like personality wise and like content wise, who will kind of mix the best.
Okay.
And then he put us all a group message, and in 24, 48 hours, everyone was locked in and it was happening.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So one quick thing, and I forgot to add this, with your freestyle, like the World Championships and the invitationals and like the Red Bull series, are these like set up or around the country, and there's like, 8 to 10 shows a year that's capped off by a final, or kind of how does that series work? Is it you just show up, or is it invite only? What's that like?
So that kind of depends country to country. Here in the United States, generally Red Bull will sponsor our or our national championship, and so it kind of doubles as our Red Bull Street Style qualifier as well. So our male champion will take part in the Red Bull Street Style World Finals, and then females, we do ours online because we're a little bit more spread out across all the different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the countries that qualify for Red Bull Street Style, it just kind of depends on which countries have a Red Bull office to support them.
Yeah.
That is the flaw in the system.
Okay. That makes sense. So let's talk a little about you freestyling, you not seeing, many women, if just that one at that event at 16. What's kind of your big picture goal with being a freestyler, creating content? What are you trying to create long term with that?
So a lot of that is kind of just coming to me along with the experience. I went into this with, no real plans. I was 17. I was a kid.
Yeah.
But the more I do things, the more I learn and work with Monica over at Football for the World, the more I realize, there's a very big platform that's really been left untapped for females in sports. Any sport really, but especially what I'm realizing is freestyle has this unique ability as a sport to connect across all the levels, whether or not you're professional, whether you're a kid, whether you're an adult. Freestyle has a way of being able to connect with everyone at all those different levels and bring up people regardless of things like gender, race, economic status, and things like that. And that's really something I'm trying to push because I learned a lot through soccer and football and things like that. But I think freestyle has really helped shape me into the person that I am. And I think it's the kind of life lessons that I've learned here that would be beneficial for girls across the globe. But especially here in sports, it really gives you a tough exterior to be able to be a female in such a male dominated sports, because every sport is, but I see it even more in freestyle. Like the gender ratio is unbelievable.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges then that you faced with being a female in this such male dominated sport? I know you talked about some of the first competitions didn't have a women's and men's side. It was just kind of open. And you were competing in there until a few years later, they probably got sick of you embarrassing all of them. And then they created the women's side. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen, that you've encountered, and have any of them changed since you've been involved in the game?
Yeah, it's been very gratifying to see in the last 7 years how much change has taken place so quickly. And it really gave me an idea of like how much power we as individuals are able to wield. Mm-hmm. But challenge-wise, I think it's just, repetitions of the same instances, like women being underestimated, undervalued. You're there and you're doing things, but you're a girl, so it's not as good. Or, we don't need girls here when we have the guys doing it. And things like some of the big competitions in the beginning, the girls would kind of be like the sideshow, whereas the male battles would be the main focus. Yeah. And it's frustrating to watch. And I understood in the beginning when you have like 5, 6 girls. But when the sport is growing and you see that there's a legitimate platform, to continue to be undervalued like that is extremely frustrating when we put in just as much time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, I'm actually thankful for it because, having things come easy, you wouldn't learn as much.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really taught me and I think all of the other girls to learn how to use our voice and speak up because people need to know that we're here and we need to make them. I mean, that's nobody else's job but our own.
Right. I love it. So talk to me. I know that there was a documentary released by Red Bull TV on like the involvement of freestyle and in the sport and how it's growing. So kind of talk to us about that and what was your role in that documentary? Where can we check it out and watch it?
So that one is still up on Red Bull TV right now. If you look it up, it's called Around the World documentary. And honestly, that is one of my favorite productions to date. They did an incredible job. The film team was comprised of a group of individuals that I actually already knew. They were already involved with freestyle for several years. And they flew out to, I think we had like 9 different people mainly involved in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And they flew out to 9 different countries from around the world in the span of less than a year, I think. And we spent 2 weeks together filming and just running around all over the place, all over California to Prague to every competition. And it was just this massive production that I was sick during the entirety of their visit. So if you see me looking horrible in the documentary, that's why.
You were sick. That's quite unfortunate for you.
Yeah.
So what I guess is there anything to come as a part 2 from it? Or what was the goal? Is it to generate just kind of awareness for the sport with Red Bull circuit? And kind of what were some of the takeaways that you got from that? Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Trust the process and sign up for No Stress Midwest training today at www.nostressmidwest.com/training. No Stress Midwest primarily offers training for soccer players on the individual, group, and team settings of all ages and skill sets. Our training is customized for the player, and our goal in doing that is to continue to grow the love of the game, build a personal desire to want to develop, and create the chance and choice for the player to play at the next level. We have developed a unique solution here at No Stress Midwest Training, showing our clients that you can have fun while still getting better. By creating a unique training environment customized to the player, we feel that not only are we able to get the most out of the individual by creating a no-stress environment, but we are also teaching them fundamentals that they can carry off the field and apply in their everyday life. Visit our website at www.nostressmidwest.com/training and sign up for your first session today.
The main goal of the documentary was just, as you said, to spread awareness about freestyle and an awareness that's grounded in facts and legitimate understandings, because I think a lot of people know of freestyle but don't necessarily understand what it is, what we do, what is freestyle even, because there's freestyle, there's street soccer, there's pana, there's a lot of little things, and to just like spread the culture of freestyle.
I love it. All right. Well, Caitlyn, before before we transition into these general questions, do you have anything that you want to add or anything that you want to kind of leave some of the listeners with that I didn't touch on or that we didn't touch on?
I would say just the general impression that people have of freestylers is that we're all naturally talented individuals, that we have a predisposition towards freestyle, we're gifted in a way, and that's completely incorrect. As I said in the very beginning, I'm a complete klutz. I'm uncoordinated, And freestyle is not really a sport that comes naturally to anybody. The way that you have to move your body is just so unusual. I don't think you can say anybody really has a predisposition for it. So for everyone who watches freestyle and says, you know, I can never do that, you can never think that, because if you put in the hours, you can do it. And there's really no limits there. We have freestylers as young as 7, 8 years old, and we have freestylers that are in their 40s and 50s. I mean, it's really open to anybody.
There it is, the 10,000 hours, right? 10,000 hours.
100%.
I had a kid actually in my soccer program, and when COVID hit and obviously everything was shut down, he did this like 90-day challenge where he was going to learn a different skill or a different juggling move every day. And he just like recorded his progress. And I thought that was really cool to see him like by the end doing stuff that I'm just like, oh shoot, like look at that, just putting in the time. That's so it works. It's true. All right, so before we head to our generic questions, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, AGY Performance Training. If you're a soccer player in the Kansas City area, elite or pre-elite, and you've got next level goals, AGY Performance Training should be on your radar. With over a dozen MLS, NWSL, and USL pros, trust AGY to get them ready for the grind that is professional soccer. Find them on Instagram at AGY Performance Training. All right, so here we go, Caitlyn. Let's get into these generic questions. These are going to be kind of fast-paced, so don't put too much thought into it, but at the same time, know that unlike the last portion, you will 100% be judged based on some of your answers during this part. So make sure you answer correctly, I'll say, because people are listening.
All right, let's go.
All right, so what would you say is the best strategy on becoming a freestyler, professional freestyler, if you will?
Work, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I mean, you have to keep asking people, and you're going to be told no, you're going to be told you can't do it, and you just have to keep going because no one will believe you in the beginning.
That's right. What would you be doing if you weren't a freestyler?
I would probably be pursuing professional soccer. That was always my goal beforehand.
Okay. When you're eating cereal, do you put milk in before or after?
Definitely after.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask this because this was brought up to me in one of the episodes. So just want to get your opinion on it. Is it okay, right, after you finish the cereal with the milk in it, to put some more cereal in just so you don't have a big bowl of milk after? Is it okay then?
I mean, I think it's okay. It's never as good, but that's okay at that point.
So never as good, but it's still tall. You won't judge someone if they did that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you heard it from Caitlyn, freestyle. It's not that bad, but it's kind of like leftovers, right? Even I don't know. I take that back because sometimes leftovers do taste better than the first time, in my opinion. But
I mean, cold pizza is a thing.
It very, very well is. All right. So how good of a soccer player were you in third grade?
I would say I was pretty good. I would usually play a few years up and with the boys quite a bit. So I could hold my own.
You could hold your own. Now, were you always a goalie or did it just kind of come after?
I started goalkeeping when I was about 8. So I was a goalie for a long period of time.
Yeah.
But and I would also play some of the field positions as well.
So I still stand by this. So I hope you don't judge me. And my best friend's a goalie, so you know that like my heart's in the right place. But I think that all goalies are a little off in the head.
100%.
To be able to put your body on the line and like know that someone's gonna kick a ball at you, and instead of like protect yourself, you open yourself up. It's something that my head just I couldn't quite wrap my head around that part. That's how I knew goalie wasn't for me.
Oh yeah, I've actually had a goalkeeper trainer tell me like to be a good goalkeeper, you need to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
and he's right, 100%.
Okay, so a goalkeeper coach said it, so I can't be judged. Um, how many times a week or how many days a week do you practice? And then how many hours each day or how many hours in a week would you say you practice?
So I practice 6 to 7 days a week, so almost every day. And then hours wise, that can be anywhere from 3 to 8 hours every single day.
Oof. So a full day's work. And when you're having a session that you talked about, or you're putting in this, 3 hours or multiple sessions, what are you just like working on one move? Are you just juggling and just trying out different combos of moves together? What does a 3 hour, or 2 hour session look like?
So generally, freestyle can be broken down into four different categories: uppers with our head, sit downs, sitting down, lowers, which are revolutions around the ball, and then blocks, which are just different catches. Um, so I will kind of break it down by that. I'll spend a few hours on each different category. And generally, it's a combination of moves. Occasionally, I will try a new trick, which can take an entire session.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally it is trying a different combinations of moves or like solidifying some of the combinations I already have.
Right. I see. Like I had no idea. So can say the four different things of freestyles again. There's uppers, sitters, sitter downers. What are they called?
Sit downs,
Oh, that's probably an easier way to say it. Sit downs. Then
lowers.
lowers, and that's like the revolutions, the around the world. So myself around the world is pretty top level for me, and I just realized that that's only a fourth of the freestyle thing. So I feel like crap now. And, and then blocks, which are like catching it, doing different stuff like that. All right. And then what would you classify what would you call your move? The like
My
back? Yeah.
the cat flip.
Yeah, the cat flip. What would you consider that?
So that's actually its own category. Those are called transitions, where you go
Okay.
from standing to sitting, sitting to standing.
Man, look at that. I just got school. I love it. So all right, before your training sessions, do you eat? Like, do you have obviously you eat, but do you have a certain like meal prep or something? Is ice cream something that you include before your pre-training session? Kind of what's that like? Or is it just normal breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I always do eat before a session because I don't freestyle well when I'm hangry. But generally, it is something light, something with maybe a little bit more carbs. I'm definitely a pasta girl. So, like a lighter pasta or like a sandwich or something like that. But I save the ice cream for post training treats when I land the trick that I've spent 3 hours on.
There we go. So ice cream is the reward, not the precursor, not the warm up.
Oh, yeah, you need something to look forward to.
Agreed, agreed. So for those girls that are asking, no ice cream before your meal or before your game.
Nope.
Um,
Nope.
what is your best memory from soccer?
Ooh, um, that's tough. I categorize them differently. I would say, oh, ooh, you threw me a curveball right there.
Uh-oh.
Okay, okay, I got one for you. In high school, I played varsity all 4 years, and my junior year, nope, sophomore year. My sophomore year, we had just an absolute killer team set up. We had a few freshmen who were just top notch. I got to play in goal. I had my best friend in the midfield, and our team was just top notch. Like I felt we could take on anyone and win. And I don't know how it is in the rest of the country, but we have CIF here,
Which is
kind of like the statewide tournament that goes
yeah,
on.
so California is a little different because it's so big and you guys have a lot of like Northern Cal, Southern Cal, and different breakups. So I don't know how CIF would, my guess would probably be just like a state, but I know that is that like the entire state or is that just a certain portion?
want to say it's the entire state.
Okay, so then probably just like our state championship here.
Yeah, effectively it's the same thing. But yeah, so that year our high school team swept our league. We won the whole thing. We had a killer record, went on into CIF, made it through all 3 rounds. It was the first time we had qualified for CIF as a school in over a decade.
Wow.
And then we broke straight from first round, second round, made it to quarterfinals. We ended up losing the quarterfinal match, but the match just previous to that was the one that, nobody really expected us to win. We were up against a previous competitor in CIF, and they had crazy record. And, we kind of didn't have a reputation as a soccer school, especially as a female soccer school.
Right.
Going into that, playing this team that no one thought we could beat and just battling the whole way through and making it out with that win was just the kind of high that you never even imagine unless you've ever been in that situation.
Yep.
It's burned to my memory. Like we had I think it was 2-3 hour bus ride back, and it was just cheers and chanting
the whole time.
Yeah.
And I feel like the bus rides after wins on a long bus ride.
Oh,
man, you get someone that brings a speaker or and it is a full-on club that's going on. I can imagine. And it's I love that the memory is from high school soccer though, because it's definitely something now that is a big conversation is amongst like the relevancy of high school soccer, right? Where the top players are now, at least on the men's side, are going into the academies and going pro. They're starting to try to do that on the women's side as well. But a lot of the people that I've spoke to with some crazy experiences, they talk about high school soccer as one of their, at least something from high school soccer is one of their favorite memories. So that's pretty cool. Final question I have is what would you say is the best trick or skill move that you can do?
Ooh, okay. So
is there a name for it?
There is. So it's called poly trick, and it's a lower trick, so it's revolutions, and it's basically 2.5 times around the ball, all without it touching the ground, and it's left and right feet.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
And geez, 2.5 times.
Yep.
I once saw someone wrap their leg around the ball 3 times and my hamstring tightened up. So I can't even imagine. Wow. Okay. All right. So that's just casual. Just, hop up. Things. Yeah. Hop up out the bed. Do that. That's cool. Whatever. All right. So Caitlyn, the final part of the podcast is the Dream 5-a-side. You just mentioned earlier that you were juggling with Mo Salah and Jesse Lingard. So I'm already kind of nervous on who's going to make your team. Messi was there not once, but twice. So that's super cash, whatevs. But okay, Caitlyn, let's hear it. What's the Dream 5-a-side?
Ooh, okay. So people that I've played with
first. Yep.
Okay, so definitely we'd have to throw in Messi, Salah, Lingard. We're gonna throw in a goalkeeper. I think I'd say De Gea.
All right.
And then Mia Hamm, who I did a commercial with as well. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, jeez. All right, and then what is the other dream team? I don't even know if there's another one, but of people that you wish to have, played with, done a commercial with, whatever. Who makes that list?
Ooh, drama aside, I would have to say Hope Solo. Female goalkeeper, you can't go wrong there. Iker Casillas, definitely one of my idols as a goalkeeper. Let's see. I'd say Tobin Heath would be a pretty cool one.
All right.
And then, last few. Neymar, I haven't performed.
All right.
And Ronaldinho, of course.
Ronaldinho. Okay, so in both of these teams, so Caitlyn, you're gonna take the managerial role. You've got Messi, Mo Salah, Jay Lings, De Gea, and Mia Hamm with one team. And the other one, you've got Hope Solo, Iker Casillas. So you've got two keepers. I don't know how they're going to battle that playing time out, but as a manager, that's what you have to deal with. Tobin Heath, Neymar, and Ronaldinho. That both of those are squads. So Caitlyn, I love it. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and jumping on. Monica is the final guest, so I'm going to actually record with her next week. So that should be interesting.
Definitely, yeah.
But before we end this podcast, right? Everything's all said and done. Any final words? Any final things that you want to leave with the listeners to maybe that little girl that's out there that maybe pulled her hip flexor as well and debating on what career path she wants to take? Any final words to end us with?
I mean, at the end of the day, our life is our life. It's not our parents' life. It's not our friend's life. It's not the random person you pass on the street. And everyone will have an opinion, but I think the most important thing is to do what you think is right for you and to do what you want to do, regardless of what anyone else says, because, you know, they might have the best intentions at heart, but they don't know what you're capable of. They don't know what you want and how badly you want it and the things that you have to go through. So I think it's important to live your life for yourself and work for yourself before anybody else.
Wow. I absolutely love that statement. I'm not going to say anything else after that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the No Stress Midwest podcast. Caitlyn Freestyle, make sure you follow her on Instagram. I think she's at like over 13,000 followers, so you know she's legit. You can check out the Soccer House, look at the creations they're doing, check out the whole board. We want to thank AGY, our sponsors, again. And we will catch you guys on the final episode of season 2. Take care.